Having a conversation right now with Luther College President Brad Chamberlain. Earlier this week, it was announced that Luther will be leaving the American Rivers Conference at the end of the upcoming academic year and will be joining the Midwest Conference for the 2026-2027 school year. And Brad, when it comes to a decision like this, obviously it's not something that happens overnight. How do you initiate conversations like this? How long of a process were these discussions that ultimately led to the announcement that was made earlier this week?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. This type of decision is, you said, not one that we would make lightly. This is one that has substantial process. It was not something we would have rushed into. As we've shared with our community, both on campus and off campus, this decision resulted from a period of discernment that lasted years in length. I think in terms of the most recent period of discernment began in 2022 when Luther received an invitation from the Midwest Conference. We were not in a position to act on that invitation, but it did initiate a period of discernment in terms about Luther's identity, Luther's investments in athletics, and how its athletic conference alignment supports those goals with it. So that discernment began in earnest over the last couple of years and then was reinvigorated this academic year. We had conversations with Luther's leadership team, with our board of regents. We had some conversations with some of our key alumni. Obviously, we involved our athletics administrators in that conversation and our coaches as well. Those conversations with our coaches were primarily this spring, just thinking about conference identity, and that ultimately led to an invitation emerging at the end of May, and Luther deciding to accept that invitation.
How was it determined that the Midwest Conference was the best place for Luther moving forward?
So Luther did some substantial analysis from a variety of different set of considerations. We looked at how Luther aligned with the American Rivers Conference. We looked at how Luther aligned with the Midwest Conference, and there was another conference that we considered as well as part of that discernment process. And ultimately, the decision was made that on balance, there were more areas of alignment with the Midwest Conference, especially looking at how Luther's going into its next chapter with Norse Athletics and the investments we're making there.
And what were the similarities with a Midwest conference as compared to your current conference or another conference that you were looking at?
So I think there was over a dozen set of considerations, but the three that I'm emphasizing, and they all kind of go in that category of alignment. It was kind of alignment of philosophy towards athletics, emphasizing the educational purposes of athletics. We say that athletics at Luther is about community character and competition. We also say it's about learning. We think a lot of learning happens in athletics at Luther College, and we want to lift that up. So we saw alignment in philosophy towards athletics. We saw alignment in the geographical reach of the Midwest Conference with the geographical origins of Luther's student body. Luther is a proud Iowa college, but only about a third of our students originate from Iowa. We draw from the four-state region. We want to lean into that four-state region as well into the future. And then we saw alignment between the membership of the Midwest Athletic Conference and the Associated Colleges of the Midwest. And so that's the academic consortium that Luther belongs to. And we saw those three areas of alignment and overlap in particularly to be powerful, both symbolically and operationally for Luther moving forward.
And when it comes to a decision like this, it will have different effects on different sports, there's no doubt. How do you go about making a decision that's best for the college and the athletic department overall, and maybe not just looking at one or two individual sports?
No, that's true. And we did not just take into consideration impact on one or two sports. We looked at the impact on all of our sports. And when we had conversations with our coaching staff, we grouped them into smaller conversations. We broke them into four groups of what we anticipated might have been some of the impacts on their individual sports, and wanted to hear, frankly, from their perspectives as coaches in terms of how that conference alignment and the possibility of a conference change would affect their particular sports. We saw a number of sports where we think that the impact might be neutral. We see several sports where Luther's teams may be more competitive, and we see several sports where Luther's teams will face more competition. And then we saw, particular impact with two of our sports, wrestling and golf, that are not currently sponsored by the Midwest Conference. And so we had particularly focused conversations with those two sports in particular.
And you bring up wrestling and golf. What's the process for them moving forward? Are they going to be independent? Are they going to look for affiliate memberships? What's happening with those two sports, both men's and women's, moving forward?
So both of those are possibilities. We've talked with our coaches and we've talked with our communities both on and off campus. So our initial approach is to seek affiliate membership, whether it's in the American Rivers Conference, if they're open to that, or potentially another conference. And should that not come into focus, then we'll talk about how to have those sports thrive as independents.
And looking forward, when this happens, to folks that have been around Luther College athletics, the rivalries of the American Rivers Conference mean a lot to alumni. But when you look at the student athletes that are coming into Luther College, did you do any study that about conference affiliation and what it means to them? And was there a difference between those two things?
So I want to be careful with the generalizations, but we did have conversation and we did take that into consideration. And this is why we did some really intentional outreach to some alumni to be thinking about that, to gauge what their reaction might have been with regard to those historic athletic rivalries. We had some conversations with students with it as well. And as you intimated, we did see a difference between students and alumni. Our discernment was that change is difficult for all stakeholders with it. And so with students adapting to that change, it's our sense was that our students were not as attached to conference identity as our alumni. And so part of this is making sure moving forward is that we try to maintain as many of those historic athletic rivalries as possible. I've reached out to all of the presidents of the American Rivers Conference as a group. I've had conversations with some of them individually expressing our intention and hope that we can maintain connections, that we desire to remain connected to those institutions. And we hope that there are some non-conference opportunities that we can schedule that will allow those historic athletic rivalries to persist.
Moving to the Midwest Conference, seemingly there will be more travel involved than you currently have in the American Rivers Conference. How much of a factor did that play in making this decision, and how do you go about maybe alleviating some of the concerns that the additional travel may bring up?
That was one of the considerations we took into account. And as I said, this has been a multi-year period of discernment, most recently beginning in 2022. But I think it's fair to say we've entertained this possibility prior to 2022 as well. And I will say that the math looked different, the travel impacts looked different to us when the ARC didn't have Nebraska Wesleyan, and then when it did have Nebraska Wesleyan. And so when Nebraska Wesleyan was not part of the American Rivers Conference, the travel implications of a conference change were more acute than they were now. So the analysis that we've conducted is suggesting that the travel will be slightly increased by joining the Midwest Conference, the conference travel, but we anticipate to have shorter non-conference travel. So the sense in the calculations at this point is when you consider both conference and non-conference travel, it's about a neutral impact on travel.
And looking at the future of Luther Athletics, obviously a new athletic director will be coming in. As we talk to you on Friday morning, June 6th, give us an update on where that process is at.
Yeah, so this is an exciting week for Norse athletics. You know, I'm looking out my window at the crane, kind of going through the later stages of the renovation of the Jardine Fieldhouse. We've made this announcement about the athletic conference, and this week we are having interviews with our finalists for the new athletics director. So we have three of them on campus this week. Our last one is on campus the early part of next week, and so we anticipate having an exciting announcement about Luther's next athletic director within a week or two.
And you walked into my next question. Give us an update on the Fieldhouse renovation. How are things going on that end of things?
Going really well. And as we've shown our finalists, given them a tour of the facility, they are deeply impressed with the pace of change, the scope of change in there. Things are coming together. We've got paint and carpet in some of our new locker rooms. The opening part is coming together. So we're on pace to have that field house project completed by the end of calendar 2025 in large part. And we'll do the official ribbon cutting in May of 2026.
All right, Brad, we appreciate you taking some time to talk about a lot of changes related to Luther College North athletics. Change sometimes a difficult thing, but it's always an exciting thing too. So we thank you for taking the time to have a conversation with us.
Thank you, Darren. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Brad Chamberlain, Luther College president, talking about a lot of new things coming to Luther College North's athletics.